Hello, welcome to our four-part special on submarine movies for the Film Club. Last week began with Crimson Tide. Today it's the British 1943 classic We Dive at Dawn. And towards the end of October we have, appropriately, The Hunt for Red October, before culminating with Das Boot. All in honour of Roger Moorhouse's new book, Wolfpack, Inside Hitler's U-Boat War. So sit back and listen to Roger, director Tim Hewitt, and myself as we discuss We Dive at Dawn. Hello, welcome to this second and a quadruple bill of submarine movies in honour of Roger Moorhouse's new Wolfpack book, A History of U-Boats in the Second World War. And today it's We Dive at Dawn, and this is a movie directed by Anthony Asquith and starring John Mills, the great John Mills, and it is a film made in 1943, so there's a slight element of propaganda's probably a
Yeah,
probably.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's fair to say a bit of propaganda.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
in some sense.
Yeah.
Film about a British submarine which
The
is
Tigerfish.
tasked. What?
The Tigerfish.
The Tigerfish.
Yes.
Which is tasked HMS Tigerfish, which is tasked with sinking the German battleship Brandenburg in the sort of Baltic Sea area, and they are dispatched. And on the eve of leave, everyone goes off for leave, and then within a few hours, they have to come back and get on their submarine and go and sink the Brandenburg. And so, I mean, this is made in 43, so it's obviously got the 43 look, but I was actually rather impressed by the special effects.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Very well done. Even underwater scenes I thought were really convincing for a film made in 1943. I thought it was
because
very believable.
At one moment one of the submariners gives his little boy a model of the submarine, and I thought for a minute, they're going to use that later in a bath.
I mean, they may have done
for their underwater
but you didn't know. Yeah.
But actually, they didn't do that. They did not film the model submarine under it. Well, maybe they did, but they did it so effectively.
It's very effective.
Yeah, the moment where they try and get through a submarine net, very impressed by that.
And it's the simplicity of it, I think, that actually fools you.
Yeah,
if they tried to do it, with any sort of more dramaticism, it would have just failed dismally. But it was I think it was like one shot, really, wasn't it? Maybe two. Slightly wider and then slightly closer, and you thought, "Wow, that's juxtaposed with them inside, being jolted about." I thought it was brilliant, and I thought this is nearly, it was 80 years ago.
Amazing, And the even little things like the periscope, which you get a little bit of water coming. You were waiting for the water to come off the periscope. They're very realistic. But
I thought it was very. It seemed very convincing to me. I thought.
Well, before we started recording, Roger, you were, I think, saying something that was so interesting that I wanted to record it. So.
Well, what struck me as well was it's a much wider point, and Tim will, I'm sure, comment on this, because it's about sort of filmmaking, how filmmaking has changed. And obviously there's what are we talking? There's 50 years between this, more or less, and Crimson Tide, which we talked about before. But what struck me was that there's sort of eons in terms of filmmaking and the sort of mechanics of it. And, that struck me really, really strongly. There's no score to this film, I think, at all, for one thing.
So right at the end, I think you're absolutely right. It's one of the things I was going to mention that I think is brilliant about it.
Yeah,
I kind of think way beyond its time, ahead of its time.
So no score. And the other one thing we didn't mention last time talking about Crimson Tide, I know it's Hans Zimmer and all that, and we know he's a big cheese, but I did find the score a little bit intrusive.
I thought it was a bit OTT. Yeah,
I thought it was a bit intrusive. So you go from one extreme to the other. You've got an intrusive score and then no score at all.
Yeah.
and also in terms of, I think I said last time about this sort of relentlessness of the drama and the heightened emotion, all the bang, bang, bang. You know, this happens, that happens. You know, as a viewer, you can barely catch your breath in Crimson Tide, and then in this, it's so kind of stiff upper lip, and like it's almost the drama is almost implied, like it's not really ramped up at all. The human emotion isn't ramped up at all. It doesn't feel like it's exploiting the inherent drama of the situation almost enough. Do you see what I mean? So I was just interested in how that fits into the arc of cinematography and how we make films, you know.
That's interesting, because that was actually going to be sort of one of my first points to discuss. Compared to Crimson Tide, of course, Crimson Tide, it was extremely suspense. I mean, it was suspenseful, but it was tiring and it was relentless. I've really liked this film and have done for many, many years.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling, the fact that you've just mentioned that, I think that my initial opinion of the first half hour, which is basically nothing to do with the submarine. It's kind of all the when they're on leave. It's home life. It's a marriage going to happen.
And, all that,
and it's in a pub, and this is
and
happening.
The chip
and
shop
that's
scene.
Yeah. And I kind of think to myself, they could have just got rid of that and started on the submarine, the mission, which is, more conventional formulaic filmmaking, even today, is get to the point. But in retrospect, I think that the first half hour makes the rest of the film work.
Yes.
Because once they get into the
it gives you the characters, for one thing.
It gives you the characters, but also it sets it up the coming suspense.
Yeah.
That makes it suspenseful.
Even with that, Tim, and I completely get what you're saying, but even with that, it's quite understated in a suspense.
It is understated,
and I felt like they could have made more of it, but I suppose I agree. Wasn't how it was done.
I do think that once it gets going, and they begin to, and in fact spot the Brandenburg ship. And the more it goes along, the more I've realized I've been under some suspense without realizing it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
To the point where when it really, then it all hits the fan, and they pick up the Germans, and then Eric Portman decides, I'm going to disguise myself as a German. I was totally in the film.
Yeah.
And realized, wow, this is actually really suspenseful.
Yeah. Okay.
Without it being demonstrably suspenseful.
Just to give you just to sort of sum up from my perspective, I don't disagree with that at all, and I really enjoyed the film. But there's that scene when they go to the Danish island, right? And one of them, I forget who it is. Is it the Hobson character? I can't remember, but he's holding them off with a machine gun. And then the others sort of come up in support behind him, and they don't know initially if it's him or a German, and there's a moment of doubt, and then they sort of come up behind him while he's manfully defeating the Germans single-handedly, and he sort of says, "Oh, I'll good on you chaps," or something. It's kind of there's. Again, it was a moment that almost needed a sort of a bit of catharsis, and it didn't give it to us.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. I forgive it because I think that, and I think all films should do this. Ollie and I have talked about this, about the whole who dares wins, not who dares wins, sorry. Where Eagles Dare.
Yeah.
People speaking English when it's German, and the fact that they did what they did in this, where Eric Portman actually speaks German and goes into the German,
and the Germans all speak German,
and they all speak German, and there's no subtitles.
And there's no subtitles. I like that. Yeah.
I thought this is kind of modern filmmaking. That's why I think Anthony Asquith is a great director, because he's very matter of fact. He doesn't over stylize.
Yeah.
And in fact, there are some performances in this that I think aren't particularly suited to the medium of film. Is me trying to put it relatively politely. Neil McGuinness, I think, is the Irish character. He's kind of like in the wrong film, to be honest.
Okay.
Whereas John Mills, I think, is great in this.
He's great. Yeah.
When he just even isn't saying anything and he's looking through the periscope, I think he's genuinely looking for something through a periscope. And I thought he's fantastic with his delivery, and he's very stiff upper lip, of course, because we know John Mills. But he's not a ham. He doesn't overplay it. He's actually quite subtle. And I think that in general, that section of the film, before it all starts, it's all a little bit theatrical in a way. I think Eric Portman's very good.
But I think that's what Ollie said about he used the word propaganda, and I agree, and I agreed, and I agree with him. But that's where that not only is it that opening scene or opening, as you said, first 20 minutes, half an hour, is giving you the characters or the backbone of the characters which makes you care for what happens later, right? Which is a key thing, which I think a lot of modern filmmaking has kind of forgotten, that you need to actually get the audience to frankly give a shit about what's going on, because otherwise it's just CGI and explosives. So that means that you care about the characters, but that's, I think, a little bit the propaganda that Ollie's talking about, because if you look at it, you've got all the those scenes in the mess of the submarine, for example, where you've got all the accents of the British Isles. You've got the Irish guy, you've got the Geordie or whoever, so it goes on. And they're all kind of rubbing along, and there's a bit of friction, but they all rub along together and they make it work, and blah blah blah.
Which is actually great.
That's a bit of British propaganda, right?
It is. But I love the fact that they do that in 1943, where, of course, firsthand, they're smack in the middle of the war. When they're making this film, so the filmmakers and the writers are probably thinking, well, no, this is what's happening now.
Of course,
So we need to be as authentic as we can, and not do what they did, for example, later on in the 60s with the Battle of Britain, for example, where everyone talks like this and is flying
awfully,
the Spitfires, and it's like, well, where are all the working? Sorry, what where are all the rest of them?
Patrick Bishop talks about this in the bomber in his Bomber Command book, where he says each Lancaster sort of was filled with the different classes.
Well, I mean, plus Canadians and Australians and everything else, South Africans, Poles, so
I mean, Roger, with your book Wolfpack, link in the show notes for listeners. The U-boat, presumably German, filled with a similar thing going on. You got lots of different.
Absolutely.
Captain was upper class and
generally, but not always. But generally, sort of middle class.
Party member.
Not a necessary requirement at all. No. So some were, within a crew, you've got a cross section of German society. Of course you have. So generally U-boat crews, because of the nature of who you wanted in a U-boat, they tended to be, working class and sort of lower middle class, rather than, like, for example, the profile of the SS is much more middle class because it's aspirational. It might sound peculiar to us now, but the SS was, the creme de la creme. So of course it was filled with the sharp-elbowed middle class of Germany, and the upper class, incidentally. But yeah, the U-boat crews, they tended to, because they tended to recruit people with trades, so you'd be, a car mechanic or a plumber or a carpenter or whatever it was, an engineer. Those are the sort of people that you want on a U-boat. So it tended to be sort of, in terms of the class profile, it's very much working class, more so than other branches of service. So it's one sort of interesting angle of it. But yeah, it would have been from right across Germany. You would have had Bavarians and East Prussians and Rhinelanders and everything else. So
is there something distinctive about a submariner compared with a sort of sailor on a normal boat that we dive at dawn gets right? Do you think? Do you know? Did you recognise?
I didn't necessarily see that
Because they're
We
meant to
Dive
be
at
a bit
Dawn.
different, aren't they?
I think they are, and I think just to sort of take us away from We Dive at Dawns, I didn't necessarily see that. Apart from that scene, like I said, where you've got all the different accents represented, kind of a little bit of British propaganda coming through there, but yeah, I think so because there's nowhere to hide essentially, so you have to have a crew that works well together. And I think maybe you do see that a bit in the comment that I just made. You have to have a relatively harmonious crew, and anyone that doesn't fit, doesn't want to fit, or is a bit of an outlier or a bit oppositional. I mean, like me, I wouldn't fit in a crew like that. then you've got a problem because there's literally nowhere to hide. Like every man is integral to the crew. If you imagine the difference between being 50 men in a U-boat or a few hundred men on a destroyer, it's easier. There are more open spaces. You can if a man's difficult or has got a difficult relationship with someone, you can send him to another position or another somewhere else on the boat, and problem solved. You can't do that in a U-boat. So those tensions ratchet up very, very quickly when they're there. So yeah, I think there is something to, and the claustrophobia, all of that stuff is
I think
ramped up.
personal hygiene
Absolutely
comes across in this film. I think
yeah, it does.
unshaven, they must all stink.
Yeah, yeah, it does, and you can see that there's a couple of scenes where actually I think it did strike me. I think they looked a bit clean, but again, fair enough.
I mean, the
They
thing
did
is, it's
stink
not.
and they were filthy.
It's not that. I mean, how long is it after they set off?
Yeah, it's quite a short mission, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
But then one
Because
of the engineering staff comes in. He makes an appearance, and he's sort of smeared with oil in a slightly sort of theatrical way. But he is nonetheless filthy, which again, fair enough. Hats off.
Because
to
we
that.
don't really see that much conflict between the crew in the film.
No.
I mean, any of the conflict that happens really is when the three Germans come aboard.
Yes.
Which I think,
and they have conflict between themselves.
Yeah,
course,
which I love. I love
they're
that
dastardly
scene where,
Germans.
Yeah, and I like exactly.
Well, I did think for a minute they were going when they did find the Germans, they were just going to machine gun them. That did cross my mind.
Yeah. Like in the
Would
flip side of the Great Escape.
Well, in hindsight, actually, if they machine gun them and then kept the bodies and use them later, because you get a very sort of it's very clever.
Use them for food.
They play later with a German body, isn't there? But murdering German prisoners of war in ruthlessly like that? No, that's not really my thing.
Not the British way, is it? Really?
No.
But the fact that I thought the conflict, the inner conflict between the Germans was actually interesting because we don't know what they're saying. I'm sure Roger knows what they're saying because it's not subtitled.
Was it accurate, Roger, or was one of them saying, "What time is the train to?"
No, it was proper German. Yeah.
It was actually German.
It was actually German.
But I love the way Eric Portman's listening on and gives nothing away to us, the audience, until he actually tells John Mills, "No, I can speak German." And I just thought that was. I thought that was actually
you
a great
knew
moment.
Before because he says you're a clever chap. I don't know why you haven't risen further. You speak a couple of languages.
Yes, so but he doesn't specify which.
No, but it was pretty obvious. At least it was to me.
Okay.
Second sight, Ollie, they call it.
Yeah. Ollie, you'd be great as part of the crew. And I think that it could have been. Funnily enough, I think it could have been drawn out more, though. I think it would have benefited the film being a little bit longer.
It's pretty much bang on an hour and a half, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's sort of just the ending without giving any spoilers. I mean, I'll give a spoiler, but it's
we sank it. Yeah.
Oh, did you know?
I think the tension could have been built up in the torpedoing of the Brandenburg because
you see, this was kind of alluding to my point of earlier on. There's moments
it's all over
where
in 5 minutes.
Could have ramped up the tension, and it kind of doesn't, which I found a bit surprising.
What's the? I had a question as to because they're given the information that the Brandenburg has left.
Yeah.
And where it's heading. How? So I'm assuming. Are we told how this information came about? Is this the sort of thing that during the war, we had that intel that easily.
Did we have what's the code Enigma by 40?
Yeah, Ultra. So yeah, by 43, you know, there's a pretty good chance that they could have known stuff like that a prominent target was about to leave port. Yes.
So that decision, John Mills's decision to essentially chase it.
Yeah.
You know, he'd take it. A commander like that would take it upon themselves to go.
Yeah, I mean, chasing it into the Baltic is a pretty mad thing to do. So that would be one of the things I would kind of query. That, you know, the Baltic was basically a German lake at this point. You know, it's essentially. You've got Sweden to the north, obviously, which is kind of neutral. But it's 43. That's a rather reckless thing to do. And again, you know, the submarine nets. That's another. You know, when we come to the inaccuracies, the submarine net thing was breaking through. I think also reckless. So, but anyway, you know,
right?
Yeah,
Part of the propaganda.
Yeah, of course. You know, it's sort of propagating the image of the British and British commanders and crews as, you know, flexible and resourceful, and you know they don't just follow orders, because that's what the bullet-headed Germans do, by, you know, according to the stereotype. So we're not like that. We're resourceful. You know, we'll sort of, you know, think our way around a problem and so on.
We're cunning.
So, cunning. So it's you know, it's sort of reinforcing the national stereotype in that sense as well.
Would there have been much submarine on submarine action? You know, U-boats versus British submarines.
No, hardly ever happens. So there's one instance of that I know of, in off Norway. I think it was in 1940, which I talk about in the book, which I think is still the only incidence of a submarine sinking another submarine while both are submerged.
Wow.
Which is kind of remarkable, because you see it in all these films and you think, oh, okay, right, you know, that must happen all the time. But
and did it take
it
sort of 400 meters for the torpedo to arm?
Yeah, almost certainly, Ollie. Yeah. Like, so have they even seen The Hunt for Red October?
Yeah. So hypothetically, if this submarine, the Sea Tiger,
Tigerfish,
did chase
Sea Tiger, isn't it?
It's Sea Tiger, isn't it? I think
Tigerfish is a bit of a naff name for it's HMS Sea Tiger, I think.
Is it?
Tigerfish.
Come on.
Well, it's almost there.
Hello, Ollie here. Please forgive my interruption, but there are live events upcoming, and I was sure you wanted to hear about it. First, for those near Tring in Hertfordshire, I will be in conversation with great friend of the show, Roger Moorhouse, discussing his new book, Wolfpack, on Thursday, the 9th of October at 7:45 p.m. Tickets can be found at the Tring Book Festival website or in the show notes. Second, Saturday, 1st of November at 10 a.m, I will be at the Imperial War Museum, London, for the podcast live show. You'll be able to attend and listen to me and great friends of the show, Tessa Dunlop and Ian McGregor, as we discuss Hiroshima and memorialising war. There will also be a number of other great indie history pods, including History Raid. So again, head to the IWM website or find the link in the notes to this episode. And I hope to see you there. Now back to the show.
If hypothetically it did chase a battleship into the Baltic, are you saying that there's highly unlikely that it'll come up against another submarine, a German U-boat? I mean,
Sea Tiger. Sorry, you're right. Why did I get Tigerfish? Oh, okay. Sea Tiger. I stand corrected. Apologies.
If the Baltic was a German lake, Roger, then are you saying that if it did chase this battleship, it would be unlikely to come across a German U-boat?
I think it'd be unlikely to get out in one piece would be one thing. Whether it, you know, unlikely to. Well, the thing is that, you know, they're so blind in this time. I mean, this isn't like, you know, we talked about Crimson Tide, where they do actually have, you know, some ability, you know, via the advanced technology they have to sort of track what's around them. They're so blind at this point, in 1943, that you could almost have sort of, you know, brushed past a U-boat and not known it was there, particularly underwater, which is why it makes that sinking that I mentioned so remarkable. So it's a bit different if one of them was on the surface. So, for example, the French submarine Doris is sunk by a German submarine. I think it was U9 in 1940, but both were on the surface, so they could see each other. Well, the German one could see the Doris anyway. But for both, it's why it's so significant that both submerged, right? That's why that sinking is so significant. So that you're basically driving a hunk of metal underwater with very little in the way of awareness of what's around you. So yeah, I mean this is why, as you say, they tended to sort of concentrate on surface targets, because you couldn't really see what was around you.
Technically, so this is just actually a question about navigating under the surface.
Yeah.
If they're so blind, how do they deal with certain aspects of the topography? Like we'll see in that boot, of course, to come.
Yeah.
Ridges.
Yeah. Well, they
tend
not to go. I mean, the crush depth on, going into a bit of detail here, but crush depth on something like the Type 7, which was the standard U-boat of the war, it varied for various marks, but it's around kind of 250 meters. So they don't go beyond that. If you go beyond that, you're in trouble and you're not coming back. So they don't tend to sort of come across ridges and stuff. I mean, they do tend to sit on the bottom when they can. In the North Sea, particularly, they'll quite happily sit on the bottom and so on. But I think that generally, you don't know what's there. The mapping and so on was very poor. You don't necessarily know exactly where you are. I mean, in some cases there are U-boats that are particularly up in the Arctic. They're trying to position themselves, and they find that they're sort of 50 miles away from where they thought they were. So all of that navigation was a slightly sort of more woolly concept, even in the 1940s than we might have imagined. Go on, how they deal with undersea obstacles. They don't encounter many because of the depth thing, but otherwise it's just a little bit of pot luck.
Yeah, it's really interesting how primitive. But of course, they had submarines in the First World War as well, didn't they?
Of course. They were just,
yeah. But so how much? I feel like I should be asking these questions maybe when we have our dedicated podcast. But how far had they evolved from the First World War into the Second World War? Because I get the impression that not a huge amount from what you.
No, not wildly, because like I said, the Type 7 is basically an evolution of the UB3, which is the submarine the Germans had at the end of the First World War. It's a similar size. It's a similar concept. A lot of the technology is basically the same. So you've got, there are some sort of updated elements, not least in, hydrophones and radio technology, crucially, which they had in the Type 7s. The torpedoes are essentially the same thing. So it's a sort of an updating of essentially 30-year-old technology, just to some extent. Rather than being anything radically new. They do develop the radically new stuff in these, what was called the Type 21s, which they have at the end of the war, but they never see combat. So, that they point the way to a lot of the innovations and the technology that comes in with the Cold War. So in a sense, that's the first, you could say it's the first submarine of the Cold War, but it crucially doesn't see action in the Second World War.
How was the relating to this film?
Yeah.
Some of my favorite moments actually are, in fact, the technology behind it that you actually see, aside from Hobson on the radio, listening, essentially.
Yeah.
And amazing that I still think that it's amazing that in the 1940s they could do that. But actually the mechanics of the sub itself, the guy who essentially pilots it.
Yeah.
Pulling his levers repetitively, which I found awesome for a film in 1943. It's not the sort of thing that I would always associate with cinema.
He almost looked like he was changing the points, didn't he? On the rail line.
I actually thought that exactly, and I actually thought that there were moments of suspense when it would cut between him and then outside and the propellers, and then going for the net. I actually thought that was really good for a 40s film.
Yeah, it was. It was very well done. I think you're right. It did have a sort of, a feel about it that it didn't feel like it was made in 43.
No.
Yeah.
And I know
think
you mean about the
good at
net.
that
I
sort of
mean,
thing.
the net is there for a reason, and the reason is to not allow submarines through, and that's exactly what happens.
Yes, of course. Is it interesting that there's a point just occurred to me. There was a German submarine film which came out, I think it was in 41. I talk about it in the book, which was called U-Boote Westwärts, which is U-boats westwards. So basically, U-boats ho sort of thing. And that was kind of revolutionary because a lot of it was filmed inside a U-boat. So they didn't kind of create a mock-up, which is actually what Das Boot did, but they actually filmed it inside U-boats. So technologically, it was very difficult to do. But that film actually is there are very few versions of it left, and you kind of can't see it. There's a version at the British Film Archive, and I asked to see it a few years ago, and they basically said no because it's in such bad condition that they don't show it. But there are clips of this film online, and it's probably, as I said, it's probably only 2 years before, and it was considered revolutionary at the time. But the quality of the audio and the quality of the picture and so on is much, much poorer than this. So that's partly why we're saying this feels like it's from, almost a 1950s film, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because of the quality of it.
And I do think, I mean, genuinely, I think that Anthony Asquith has this quality in him. Another film, my favorite of his, that I think we were going to do, but we didn't do, with his frequent collaborator, Terence Rattigan, as the screenwriter, which is Away to the Stars, set on the Bomber Command base, right. He has this similar quality. It's not showy filmmaking. It's very matter of fact, realism that I find surprising in that decade.
Yeah,
because you look at other films and things are heightened. I do think that this film has aspects of that.
Yeah,
mainly in its performances in many ways.
But it feels much more modern.
I think that's a hallmark for a great director who's sort of seeing past the theatricality of things, particularly with the subject matter as kind of, I guess, serious. This would have been taken very seriously in those days, I assume.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it surprising that they actually make these films during the war. Full stop.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, it's no accident, I suppose, that 43 is when the U-boat war in general kind of turns. That's where it turns against Germany. The Wolfpacks are withdrawn from the Atlantic, for example. So perhaps there was not only a bit of leeway and a bit of brain space. I don't know. Maybe that's unrealistic, but
I mean, do we know when this was actually? I mean, I assume this was released in 1943.
Released in 43,
probably
so presumably made in 42.
Before. Yeah.
Well, they made them quite quickly in those.
Well, release date on
particularly this one
is April 43, so that would suggest it was being made in 42. Sure.
Yeah.
A
post-production, etc. But I just feel it's a little rushed at the end.
Yeah, a little bit maybe. They could have cranked out a bit more emotion perhaps from that, but
not something that we're going to see with Das Boot.
No.
Actually, that's we've discussed that, I suppose, offline. The version that we're going to be doing.
Oh yes, we have to.
Yes. There's great controversy over which version to watch, isn't there? Right. Okay. Well, look, I think we should do our awards. So we've got best performance and best supporting performance. So we'll go with best performance to start with. I mean, John Mills or Eric Portman.
I can't really see past John Mills.
No, I think he's really good. This is kind of what made him put him on the map. This film.
Oh, it was this particular film, was it? I have to say, if I was sort of 15, 16 in 1943, I'd lap this stuff up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hence the propaganda element that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. No, he is excellent in it. And
this and Laurence Olivier's Henry V were major propaganda films.
Yeah.
Was that the same year?
No, Henry V was a year later, I think.
Okay.
Well,
Mills is
I
brilliant.
think John Mills for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
I went to see Kula Shaker, John Mills's grandson.
Yeah.
Oh,
St.
cool.
Crispian.
Excellent live. I would
St.
highly
Crispian's
recommend.
Day.
They're really good live, and that boy has not aged.
Really?
Crispian Mills.
Wow.
Yeah, unbelievable. Anyway, so okay, well, Mills is the winner then. But I thought Eric Portman was really good.
I thought he was great. Could he not be supporting though?
I think we can put him into supporting. I mean, I unlike you, I quite like the Neil McGuinness. The moment. I thought
he's a little bit over the top.
The laugh out loud moment was when he's literally about to say to his wife, "I do," and they go, "Oh, you've been recalled from leave." He goes, "I have." It's just, like
I mean, it's all a little obvious, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was quite fun. That was quite hammy, but in a way that I quite liked. It made me laugh because he was so delighted to get out of his work. And another thing I would say is that his fiancée, oh my God, he was certainly trading upwards there. She was
punching,
gorgeous.
Yeah, I think that's totally unrealistic.
Yes,
that's the inaccuracy.
Yeah.
Yes, she was. Don't know what happened to her. Actually, she was fantastic. What was the? I thought the German guy who basically pummels his colleague. I thought he was really good.
Oh, okay, right. That's a left field shout for supporting actor, is it?
Sorry, I'm being a bit
unpatriotic.
I probably. Your blood must be boiling, Ollie. But I thought he was a very good actor.
Now, was it Portman?
I think it has to go to Eric Portman if we.
Yeah, well, was it Portman? Was he the guy whose marriage was failing in the chip shop scene?
Yes.
Was that him? Yeah.
Yeah.
I had him noted down. I did not.
Yeah.
I had him noted down as Hobson, which was his character name.
Yes.
And I love that scene where I think he's being where he volunteers to go and do the mission on the island, and he says, "There's no one to mourn for me, sir."
Yeah, fantastic,
lovely, because his wife's all run off with the bloke that runs the chip shop.
Exactly,
so I thought that was wonderful.
No, that was her brother.
Oh, it was her brother, was it?
Yeah, but there was the Neil McGuinness's rival to his fiancée was this rather sort of slimy lounge lizard type character. Oh, you better go off.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
But Eric Portman's performance when he's speaking German with the guys in the phone room, in the control room.
Yeah.
And he's showing the papers and everything. I thought he was brilliant because he was so understated. He was just so real, and I thought he was excellent in that.
Yeah.
And his German's good. Was his German good?
Yeah, I think it was very 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 passable.
Well, it had to have been better than passable because he was wearing a Luftwaffe uniform.
Yeah. No, he was. Yeah, and
that's Glorious Bastards territory. You know, hasn't really happened since, as far as I know, like that.
No.
Really great. I thought.
I'm just noticing he died in 1969. So long ago. Incredible.
And I thought the Danish scene. Well, okay, so we're going to do who we decided? Eric? Are we going with Eric Portman? I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, definitely. Best scene. So I have to say, I did want to skip towards the bits when you're in the submarine, as much as the marriage scene was quite funny. That trying to get through this submarine net was really good, as you say, with the guy changing the points, reverse and forward. Something so simple, just really good.
And it was dramatic. It was dramatic. There was a drama to that as well, which was
the torpedoing of the Brandenburg and the footage of the death charges, which must have been real footage, presumably.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think.
Probably. Because I think it would. I don't think you would have been. They would have done sort of
Not during the
miniatures
war. They
or
wouldn't have wasted
No,
depth charges, would they?
no, I imagine that was, yeah, like you say, I think they probably would have filmed,
and
probably the
where,
thing.
in fact, interesting where it would have been filmed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Um,
certainly, yeah, it all looked very, very authentic, didn't it?
Yeah. And then the thrilling bit in the Danish
yeah,
island. Um,
Yes.
I love the Danish sailors. Oh, we'll help you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. You're
Yeah.
British. Oh, of course we'll help you.
Yeah.
Um, the
I mean,
the
I would have thought that the Danish sailors might have come to a sticky end. I think they should have got on the submarine. I think a little bit
Yeah,
unfair to have left
I
them there.
agree. They probably would have, yes, they probably would have been done in. But no, I think that scene, that whole scene was very, that was the sort of almost the climax of the film, I suppose, wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, very, yeah, enjoyed that.
Well, I'll go with the. I think I'd go with that. The sinking of the Brandenburg and the depth charges. It was all
Yeah,
quite realistic.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, I
well,
agree.
yeah.
Okay.
What about the maybe this is in could be part of the inaccurate. What was the other inaccurate bit that we talked about?
Well, the
Oh,
submarine net. I don't know how
the submarine
realistic.
net. But
Yeah,
Can you get
submarine
through
net.
them if you keep
Well,
on
I
battering away?
suppose you could, but if you just look at a submarine, it's got sort of, it's got bow planes, which you could actually see in those scenes. You've got bow
Mm,
planes that do your elevation in the water, if you like, And if it's okay to break through the net as they did, sort of
mm,
with and you know, they did have the German ones had this sort of serrated front edge, which was designed particularly for that. But then, of course, you're going to be snagged by that stuff. And if you start sort of, fouling your bow planes and so that's a bad situation because you're basically uncontrollable. Like we said
mm,
before, you can't really see what's going on anyway, see in inverted commas. But if you're then out of control because your bow planes are jammed, you're in serious trouble. So I think that to me was a reckless and I would venture to say slightly unrealistic move because
okay.
the
Could you send a
chances of
couple?
being snagged in that are
mm.
are are huge
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Could you
And
send a
so that
couple of?
then they're
catastrophic,
screwed. They're
and
completely
then they're
screwed.
screwed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Could you send a couple of divers out with some big scissors
Uh,
or a knife?
Yeah.
no, because you don't. There's no sort of there's not
Shears.
some
Or yeah, or could you
carpentry.
attach some
Yeah,
giant scissors in front of the submarine to fit?
no, this is not Heath Robinson. No, you don't
What
have that
about the
capacity.
fake sinking of it?
Yeah,
That
that
when it,
I think. Well, there are two bits
I
there.
thought that was really clever.
The bit where they put the body in the tube along with a load of
yeah.
oil and fired it out, that was a common thing. So the
Mm.
Germans did that. It was a tactic they called bold. So they used to
I love the
fire
fact
out
that they did it
debris.
really nonchalantly.
Yeah,
So I just
yeah,
shoot him out the thing. It's fine.
yeah. So they did used to fire out,
That must have been quite amusing.
packages of
Yeah.
debris to try and look like they'd been sunk. So that was sort of authentic, but the idea of actually tipping the thing up on its end to make it look like it's sink, which is what they did,
Mm.
which is admittedly ingenious, but I never read about that happening and being done. But I think it would be too risky that they might, choose to put a couple of artillery rounds in you while you're pitched up like that. So that to me was I noted down under the category of unrealistic. I'll stand corrected, but I thought that was a step too far.
So it's either the net or the faking. I would have thought more the net is like,
Mm.
as you say, foolhardy.
From what you say,
Yeah.
it sounds like the net was preposterous.
Yeah.
Yes, a tad foolish, but it's
Okay.
rather essential, I suppose, to the plot. But yeah, anyway.
All right. Well, then finally we'll do the legacy rating. And well,
Mm.
amongst British submarine movies, of which there are not many,
Yeah.
you'd have to say it's got great reputation. But
Yeah, and deservedly so. I mean, it's a great film. Like I
Yeah.
said, it doesn't feel like a 1940s film really at
Mm.
all. Um,
There's, I mean, what we dive at dawn. There's
The
in
Enemy
which we
Below.
serve, the enemy
Then it was
below,
that US. Was that a US one? I can't remember. Enemy
the enemy
Below.
below.
Yeah,
Uh,
Enemy Below is American,
that's
I think.
yeah, I
American, is
think
it?
it's American.
Right.
In which we serve, which is a Noel Coward
Is
one.
that
Oh,
submarines
that's
though?
not submarine though; it's ship, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about the? Oh no, that's a ship as
There
well.
was a film made.
Funny.
There was a film made with um, uh, Colin Firth, which I think is about the Kursk submarine that
Oh
sinks.
yes, yes, that's quite
But so I guess
comparatively
it's a
recent, isn't it?
British film, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no British submarines really in it.
no.
So I don't
Well,
think we've
yeah,
made many,
pretty
have we?
unusual in that sense.
That's
I
true,
mean,
I,
actually.
I
I
watched a
think we've
French
probably.
film about a French submarine with Mathieu Kassovitz in it fairly recently.
Oh yes, is this the one where you said where they don't have very many submarines? Well, they didn't have very many submarines.
The
Mm,
French,
yeah.
yeah. Well, I think
I
I
think
think they're
they
similar
had a
to us,
few.
really.
Yeah, they had a few, not as many as the Germans.
Mm.
I mean, incidentally, I mentioned the story of the Doris earlier on. The Doris is one of those, it's like a Greek tragedy, the sinking of the Doris, and I will leave it unglossed, the story, to persuade our listeners to buy the book, but or at least to look up the story of the Doris. But it really deserves. It should be a book or a film. It's just
Mm.
it's tragedy upon tragedy. It's an absolutely marvelous story.
Oh,
So
we should
Um,
definitely.
look up the
have
story of the
you come
Doris.
across the Tom Hanks written and stars in film Greyhound?
Yes, indeed. Which I liked,
Um,
actually. I liked. I
Quite
mean,
good.
there's
It was
again,
good.
there's errors in that.
Thomas
We could do
Kretschmann
that.
plays
We
the
could do that in
German.
another day. But
Mm.
I liked it. I thought it was really well done. Yeah.
Thomas Kretschmann plays the U-boat commander who sort of taunts Tom Hanks.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
one of my complaints is the taunting. It's fundamentally not very realistic.
Okay, well,
Well, then, so this has got a great legacy. Then, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And it's like we said, it doesn't feel like it was,
Mm.
done in 43 in wartime and all of that. It feels like a much
Mm.
later and more sort of opulent production than that, doesn't it?
There you go.
good stuff. All right, well, I think we'll
Wonderful.
give that a 4 out of 5 then, I think.
Yeah,
Fab.
solid. Yeah.
And it's available on itv.com for listeners in the UK. And if you've got a VPN, itv.com again. Right.
Marvelous.
So next film club will be The Hunt for Red October, starring Sean Connery
Brilliant.
as the
And Alec Baldwin. Don't forget
Alec
Alec
Baldwin.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marvelous. One of my favourites.
Yeah, very good
He was
film.
the original Jack.
James Earl Jones.
Jack.
Jack Ryan.
Ryan. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, he's very good. And then after that, we've got Das Boot, the big one.
Marvelous.
So,
Can we just? I've been mentioning Das Boot, which is how
Das
I'm
Boot.
sure to pronounce
Sorry.
it. Das Boot. May I be so bold as to start the process of correcting everybody's pronunciation?
Das
And let's
Boot.
have Das Boot.
Well, from now on,
Boot.
I'm just going to call it the boat because
Yeah.
I just find it ridiculous that we have to say it in a foreign language.
In foreign.
Good stuff. All right. Well, I look forward to that. But thank you, Tim. Thank you, Roger.
Thanks,
Ollie.
guys.
Cheers,
Great
Tim.
fun.
Links in
Bye.
the show notes for Roger's new book.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. Links are in the show notes. Please share with friends and family. And if you want to get in touch, you can through X or email history@aspectsofhistory.com. But until then, thank you and good night.